Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is May 5th, 2021, and today we're going to give our monthly update on the 2021 New York City mayoral election. And as you know, New York City is a very democratic place, so the most important race here is the primary, the Democratic primary, because from there, the Democratic nominee is certainly going to win. So in this video, we are going to update you on the candidate status, and we're going to give you guys a prediction of how the primary is going to go by the New York City boroughs.
And with that being said, let's get right into it. So, just to recap here, as Eric mentioned, the most important election here is going to be the primary, which is going to be held in about a month, which is, a little more than a month. I think June 20th something, which is actually very, very soon now that we think about it. We've covered this race since the beginning. Moving through, the first time we covered this, we had Max Rose still in here as well. But let's give a quick background of this race. We have Eric Adams, who is the Brooklyn Borough president. He is considered, I believe he is considered a more moderate candidate compared to some of the other candidates here. He was a former police officer and he is formerly a state senator and he's currently the Brooklyn Borough president. We also have, we're going to name the four major players here, major frontrunners. Scott Stringer, we're going to talk a little bit more about him as you see in the title a little more later in the video, but just for some background, former Manhattan Borough president, New York City comptroller. He has a decent amount, or he had a decent amount of, the New York City establishment support. He had a lot of support from the state legislators. A lot of the New York City Council backed him. We'll discuss him later. The other frontrunner, of course, is Andrew Yang. He ran for president. He's got a lot of name recognition for his plans. And the fourth frontrunner, and note that I'm using the word frontrunner very, very loosely, is Maya Wiley. I think there's like a 1 to 2% chance she actually wins, but she, was, I believe, counsel to Bill de Blasio. She is also pretty progressive, just like Scott Stringer. Scott Stringer, Maya Wiley, they're trying to fight for that spot of who's the most progressive here, because I think they are considered to be pretty progressive compared to other candidates here. Like, I know some progressives do think that Andrew Yang isn't that progressive. But in general, the candidates here are quite progressive compared to the rest of the country. Let's head now and let's discuss Scott Stringer and how he's been really losing support recently due to some claims, some allegations that have been made. Eric, why don't you cover that?
Yeah, so as Lucas touched upon, Scott Stringer has been in some hot water recently. So, as the headline says, he is accused of sexually assaulting one of his interns. And as we've seen with Governor Andrew Cuomo's scandals, there was a point where there was a very net negative kind of favorability towards Governor Cuomo. And the same thing is happening with Scott Stringer. All of his endorsers who have already, um, denounced their endorsements, Lucas is about to show a lot of crossed out names, which indicates that they have taken out their endorsement for Stringer. None of these people want to be associated with someone who has allegedly sexually harassed someone, and therefore they take out their endorsements, and therefore, as a result of that, he has less name recognition and also less credibility, and the people themselves will probably not want to vote for someone who has allegedly sexually harassed someone. Once the allegation was made, the people react, and they're very very likely not going to go back to their support for Stringer, and that's really going to hurt his chances in our final predictions.
Right. And uh, as a result of this, we're going to see a lot of dip of support for Scott Stringer. For example, right now, he's actually polling second sometimes third behind Eric Adams, but he's polling second right behind Andrew Yang. For example, in the recent ranked choice voting poll, because remember that New York City does do it by ranked choice voting. He was polling like number two behind. Oh, sorry, he was, yes. In some of these polls, he was polling against Yang in the final round, like this one here, 43-57. He was polling against Yang in the final round. Although he was ultimately losing, he was polling in second. He was considered a front runner before, but this will absolutely damage him. He's losing a lot of progressive support. He lost Jamal Bowman's support, very well-known progressive dame, as well as several other state legislators who are considered quite progressive. He's losing a lot of support, a lot of progressive support. And, a lot of people have been calling on him to drop out, Maya Wiley, Catherine Garcia, Sean Donovan. But it'll be interesting to see where these votes end up going to if people are not going to be voting for Scott Stringer. So let's take a look at the map now, where we make our prediction of, who's going to win each borough. So this is Staten Island here, the most conservative borough by far. Then you have here, this is Brooklyn, which is the most populated borough. This is Manhattan, and this is Queens, and this borough over here is the Bronx. So I'll start off by making what our prediction is for, let's start with, Manhattan. Initially, I was thinking Stringer was going to win here, considering he is very well known around here. He's the former borough president here. But due to the recent events, I'm thinking this will go to Yang. And this is especially considering, he is pretty well known around New York City, around Manhattan. He started Manhattan Prep here, which I believe was an SAT prep type of school. I think he will have enough support in Manhattan to end up winning the borough. And let's head now to Queens. Eric, what do you think about Queens?
So, Queens has a very high Asian American population, and Andrew Yang being also another Asian American. The Asian Americans in Queens, they kind of resonate with that, and because of that, I think Andrew Yang is going to win the Queens borough because there are a lot of people there really agree with what he has to say, and it's not the most progressive borough in the New York City, along with Andrew Yang not being the most progressive candidate on the list.
I would agree with that. I think that Andrew Yang has really mobilized a lot of Asian Americans into public office and getting a lot more of them engaged. We saw the AAPI Victory Fund end up backing him. I do think he will earn a decent amount of AAPI support, and I do think that could propel him to a victory in Queens, given how high of a population that is, and I think they will end up backing him. We saw I believe it was the Asian Democratic Party of Queens. I believe they ended up endorsing Yang, so I think this one will be going to Yang. Heading now to, oh sorry, this was Brooklyn. Hit the wrong county there. Heading now to Brooklyn. I think that Eric Adams will win Brooklyn. Given his previous experience here as the former borough president, he's pretty well known here. And I think that he will end up carrying it because of name recognition in Brooklyn. Even though, Andrew Yang is pretty well known across the country, across New York, I think this is where Eric Adams could end up shining. Let's head to Staten Island now. Eric, what are your thoughts on this one? Because we were a little bit, this one was hard to tell which way it would go.
Right, because as Lucas explained before our predictions, Staten Island is the most conservative borough out of all of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Max Rose, perfect example, very moderate Democrat, even then was not elected in our most recent 2020 election. So it's kind of hard to tell which Democrats, Staten Island Democrats like the most because because of the kind of how Republican this borough is. So it's definitely not going to be Scott Stringer, one, because he is more progressive, and two, of his allegations. So it really comes down to Andrew Yang and Eric Adams. And my personal gut feeling is that Andrew Yang is going to win this borough solely or mostly off of the fact that he has a lot of name recognition. And, Eric Adams, in Brooklyn, he has a pretty big name, but other than that, I'm not really sure how much of a chance he has. I'm sure it's definitely going to be close. Just like we have battleground states in elections, in nationwide elections, we're going to have battleground boroughs in this primary because it's going to be kind of hard to tell. But the important part is that Andrew Yang has really mobilizing his platform and he's really trying to get his ideals out there and what he wants for New York City. And just because he's been more publicly expressing interest than Eric Adams, I feel like that's why he's going to take it.
I see. I'll put this one as a toss up as well because I genuinely am not too sure who could win this one. It could really go either way. If Max Rose was still running, this would have absolutely went to Max Rose, but he has since dropped out, so we're not too sure on this one anymore. And the final borough here is the Bronx, and the Bronx is also another one I'm really conflicted on. I genuinely don't know who's going to win this one. It's going to be close between Yang and Adams. I'm going to give this one a toss-up as well. I think it could go either way. It's going to be a battle round. It's going to depend on how hard they campaign here. But in general, I think we are going to end up seeing a Yang victory. Of all the counties, he's not going to win, every single county, but he will end up winning the general election and will become the next mayor of New York City. I'm thinking, 5% victory. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It actually could end up being more, given the ranked choice of voting. Um, it's going to be hard to tell where progressive voters do put their, second or third choice after Scott Stringer or after Maya Wiley. I'm thinking it's going to go to Yang, but it is really hard to tell here. But that is our prediction for now of the 2021 New York City mayor election. Thank you all so much for watching this episode and this update. If you like this episode, please hit like one. If you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.